Ooh, excuse me, I shouldn't have did that. Asthma. Okay, do we hit record?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for all that. You got something else? Good afternoon. Okay, one more time. Oh, yeah, thank you, because I'm short. There you go. Awesome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Awesome. That's what I like. That's what I like. Thank you for joining us to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion and needs of social workers. So I'm coughing because I tried to run and I'm out of breath and I'm asthmatic. Okay. So that's why I'm breathing heavy. So just so that you know. So again, we'd like to thank you for joining us here at the Department of Social Work for one of our Black History Month series. Okay. So they won't move.
Well, how about this one? Well,
It won't move.
awesome. Let's try that.
Won't move.
Technology is the devil. Okay, well, why don't you start talking?
Okay,
I'll be
cool.
your
You'll
technical
figure it out.
assistance person.
Teamwork make the dream work.
Okay,
Awesome.
you can walk around.
Oh, that's right. 'Cause I like
Yeah,
to
you
walk.
can. She's gonna walk. I'm gonna
So
make this.
today and every day, we celebrate the foundation of Black history. And specifically this month, the month of February, is designated to do so. And its founding father is Dr. Carter G. Woodson. So Dr. Woodson was an educator, a historian, a visionary, and he devoted his life's work to educating and influencing, there you go. And influencing the context of our nation's educational curriculum. So Dr. Woodson's aim, this is one of the quotes he kind of lived by, was to change or inject and profound lasting influences that American history has represented or lack of the cultural identity and awareness of the Black community in the US and globally. So Dr. Woodson, a realist, which I relate to, was recognized that he could not accomplish his vision of American history without the participation of others and through organization and institutional building. So there were many others that helped him along the way to make Black History Month come to what it is today. So it's time to celebrate and uplift the constant achievements of Black Americans and the impact of societal norms. For instance, many of you may have seen on TV, Henry Louis Gates Jr., who is a professor, historian, and film writer. And he stated, the thing about Black history is that the truth is so much more complex than anything you could ever make up. So the 2022 theme for Black History Month is Black health and wellness. So the Constitution of the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social being. So oftentimes when we think about health, we think about the body physically with a disease of some sort, but health is much more than that. And there are really three types of health. Health is the absence of any disease or impairment. Health is a state that allows individuals to adequately cope with the demands of daily life, which we'll be talking about some of those things. And the third is that health is a state of balance, like an equilibrium that an individual has established within himself and between himself and the social and physical environment. So we'll talk about it later because the environment has not been so much homostatic, right? So the balance is a little off. And we'll mention some of the reasons why the social environment has been off. And then wellness is the conscious development of the whole self, right? So for instance, we talk a lot in social work that we need to be in tune with our self-awareness, and that as a profession, we're here to promote human well-being. So again, that's wellness. So not from a disease state, but just from a holistic state. So studying or reviewing history, which is Black History Month, provides an opportunity to review the past in order to better understand the present condition or situations, and provides an opportunity to learn from past accomplishments and mistakes. So for Black Americans, it provides an opportunity to make our own narrative and not allow the narrative to be scripted for us, but by us, for us. And that Black history is American history, right? It's not separate, it's the same. From a social work perspective or a social justice lens, we're grounded in humanitarian and democratic ideas with a focus on meeting, again, those human needs and developing human potential and resources. So just a quick fact about Black History Month. Today, I am Dr. Carmelita Dotson, Assistant Professor and BSW Coordinator in the Department of Social Work. My team, my partner today is Dr. Ariana Postlethwait, affectionately known as Dr. P. Not here with us today, oh, thank you, Scott. Not here with us today is Dr. Sabrina Sullenberg. She is a social work professor also, but at Belmont, so she's teaching class. So I say all that to provide the framework. So it was about in 2020, we had some informal discussions about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just what do we do from a social work perspective to try to provide more meaningful resources or engagement opportunities with the social work profession. So we originally started out looking at what are some of the needs of our field educators. So the individuals that you will come in contact with, who may be your field supervisor, your field liaison, and so on and so forth. That could be any faculty at any particular point in time. We could be a faculty liaison within the field. So it's important for us to understand what are some of the needs, and then how can we bridge the gap to what those needs are. So today we're here to open up another piece of that research and to see what are the needs coming from the student perspective. So an overview, we're going to define some terms because it's important for us to understand what different terms are so that we're all on the same page, because we come from different cultural backgrounds, different geographical backgrounds, and we may have a different interpretation of what a word means. And then we're going to look at a reflective process, which is affordance framework, to look at what we know. So what do we do? And then now what? And then of course, we're going to focus in, as always, on our core values of social work. That is what drives us as a profession towards professional standards and ethics. And then look at what are some of the key issues that we need to be honing in now for competency and practice for the social work arena. And this rain, y'all, I'll be talking about it at some point today. And then finally, we'll leave with takeaway. Don't touch it.
Yeah, don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
You
All
can't
right.
touch this.
Can't touch it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. That was my MC Hammer
Yes.
rendition, just so y'all can. Okay, so hopefully, hey, Zoom, go back. I don't want you to see that yet.
Yes.
So. Not used to a mic. Okay, so don't judge me. Hello. So we have some terms. I'm also looking at the clock, always looking at the clock because there's so much to talk about. Okay, there's not a person behind that monitor. Good. And not enough time, of course. But so when I say diversity, and I may have to yell to Zoom what you say to me, or someone in Zoom can tell us, when I say diversity, what comes to mind for you?
In the room and on Zoom.
And room and Zoom. Yes.
I think of diversity, I think of disability.
Disability, okay. Okay, I see you two back there, students, so different kinds of people, different cultures. Zoom, you want to add your 2 cents? They're like, no, we don't. So, okay. Well, the simplest way I think about diversity is difference. We do talk about cultural diversity. There are a lot of ways that people are different. So I lifted this, I did not plagiarize, we give credit, to the National Association of Social Workers. So here is their list, and they point out it includes, but is not limited to. So a lot of times we do think about race and ethnicity, but it sounds like you are thinking more broadly than that. Do any of these kind of jump out at you like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before? So we've got gender, I guess I won't read them all because we don't have time, but does anything kind of surprise you? Work style. Yeah, you know, I was thinking about the whole thinking or personality type. Introvert, extrovert is one thing I thought about. There's nothing wrong with being introverted, that just there are differences. Yes.
Is it thinking style?
Thinking style. And you know what I first thought of was some of us are external processors and like to talk out loud about problems. Others internally, I don't want to say a word till I figure it out. So there are different ways that we are different. So again, I don't want to, I'm just going to keep it moving. I might sing a song. Oh, wait. Well, no, that's it. Well, I think when you think about, a lot of people don't have them. Some people do have them, and understanding that is a difference, that is a disease. It's not a moral failing. So that's what I would say. Yes, ma'am. Veteran status. You think of that as more as a title? Is that what you said? Becomes a veteran. And you, I feel like you're way more qualified to talk about that than me anyway. But I guess we could consider that as some way, if we're talking about difference, that is one way someone could be different. So that there's a whole lot that I don't know simply because I'm not a veteran. Would that seem fair?
Well, mega power is like, at one time, people consider being in the military a status, like.
A status.
For example, presidents who haven't served in the military are considered not very American.
Not very American. I don't know.
Kennedy, remember when that was a big thing?
It was a big deal that he did not serve in the military. So, and that's, so again, CS Dept participants can now see your application. Well, that's good. Yeah, so this is very broad. So and you seem to be thinking broadly, which I think is helpful. If I think about, what do you think about, we're hearing these terms more and more, diversity, equity, inclusion. What the heck does equity mean? You want to give that a shot? I won't shoot you down. Okay, I see a row of 3, and then I saw your head roll back. I couldn't decide if that was because you wanted to say something. Okay, so I'm gonna go you then you. Yes? Equity is different from equality. So, okay. You're just gonna say that. You're gonna go with that. Okay. Okay. Oh, no, you're looking at your textbook. What else would you like to add me? People are given what they need for equity. Look at you. You want to come up here and talk about this next slide? That would be good. I really like this picture because the first, they're like, yeah, and you may have seen this. And I really like it because it gives a nice, clear, I'm like touching the counter, like that's my screen. So in the first picture, things are equal. Everybody gets the same thing. And as you can see, there's a problem for some people with that. And so if we give everybody what they need, in the next picture, they can all see the game. Or if we remove the barrier entirely, that would be nice too. Nobody's getting hit in the face with a ball. They've got a different kind of fence to protect us. So the idea, and I really like this quote, I was going to say from Dr. Dotson, but you took the quote. And so now fairness doesn't mean everyone gets the same. Fairness means everyone gets what they need. So I think that's very helpful. And it sounds like you all get that. So then if I ask you what the heck inclusion means, don't say being included.
What is inclusion?
Inclusion. Or Zoom. I see chats. Anything there, Scott, or they're just.
Yes, I apologize, but to go back to the veteran, I do like the way that
Okay.
Keith.
Hey, Keith.
I think it is. Yes, with veteran status plays an important part in the hiring workplace. Yes. Veteran status plays an important part in the hiring workplace. And then, Dr. Vicky Martin said, for example, veterans have unique life experiences based on being in the military. You can also think from an intersectionality perspective, female veteran, Vietnam versus storm age, LGBTQ, vets, and others.
Excellent. Thank you for that very much. Okay, so back to inclusion. What are we talking about there? Another quote I like, but I'll tell you later.
What's inclusion?
Okay, yes, what you got? Maybe, oh, look at you, making sure everybody's heard, maybe, could be, right? And this is, oh, this is the quote I really like. Diversity is being invited to the dance, inclusion is being asked to dance, equity is allowing you to choose the music. I really like that, so thank you. So we do have this nice graphic, which does include being heard, being welcomed, being listened to, actively involved. So how do we include people actively? Not just, oh yeah, you can come. So these are things for us to think about. And I like how it points out whether we're teaching in our communities, in our internships, in our classrooms. So that makes sense? You with me? Okay. Well, what about when I say racism? What does that mean? Oh, you got one there? Okay, maybe.
I would define it as,
Mistreating someone based upon the color of their skin. Okay. What you got?
to add along with that, also mistreating them based on their race or ethnicity.
What? Here, you can say it right there.
See, my bad.
Okay, you don't want me to? Okay, you're good. I'll quote you if you want.
I could take it.
Okay.
And to add along with what she said, mistreating somebody based on their race or ethnicity.
Okay, would you like to add to the collection and then I'll blow your mind. Okay. Oh. Treatment period, not just this treatment, but how they have treatment. So a lot of, I think what y'all are talking about, there are different levels of racism. I'm not here to tell you you're a racist or you're not a racist, okay? We can talk about individual racism and interpersonal, which I feel like that's kind of what y'all are talking about. You know, somebody telling a racist joke or, you know, hearing people call out those names. I think that's what a lot of us think about, but it's actually a lot more complex than that. So this is a piece of it. And you learn about this in diversity. Is anybody in diversity right now? Yep, and taking it? Have you taken it?
We're taking it.
It's happening right now. Okay, yeah, excellent. Okay, well, and I don't think that these are necessarily foreign to you, but maybe they're not the first thing you think of. When we think about racism within an institution or structurally, we think about a little different thing. So we're actually working on some research, or it's sitting out there waiting for us, because there's research that shows us that kids of color, particularly Black kids, are overrepresented, and I feel like I have to get on my toes. Hello. Overrepresented in out-of-school expulsions compared to what percentage they are in the general population of all students. So I can't remember, it's like 20% or 14%, and it's some ridiculous percentage, like 80%. It varies on the county, but it's some outrageous number. So that would be an example of institutional racism. And then we can think about stereotypes in terms of structural racism, like the Muslim person is the terrorist, things like that. So there are a lot of different levels when we talk about that. It's pretty baked into our society. So part of it is being aware of these things. And have you heard the term anti-racism? Anyone? I'm not going to make you define it, just checking. Okay, some nodding, some nodding. I think we're hearing it more and more. And the idea is it's not enough to say I'm not a racist. Good for you, you're not a racist. Okay, but what are you doing? So it's about being more active in that fight against racism. We all have a role to play there. So it can really be something as simple as somebody tells a racist joke and you're like, hold on. So it can be something like that. So we're starting to, I feel like, hear a lot more about anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So again, this involves self-reflection, awareness. That's the first piece of the cultural competency framework, right? Okay, so that's the first part, is becoming aware. So that's a lot of what we're talking about. And I think that's where I stop and hand it. Oh, no, I have more to say. Do I have more to say? Oh, do I? Look at me. Oh. Oh, yeah,
No, you don't.
yeah, see, she's,
Okay.
yeah, always trust her.
All right. So now that we've defined some of the terms, so now we're going to use a reflective process. And this process is called Borden's Framework by Terry Borden. So in 1970, he was a school teacher, and he published a book called Reach, Touch, and Teach as a reflective process model. And so the framework is one that helps us to describe and explain and provide some future practices that we need to work on. So it would help individuals in the community to look at some of the challenges of societal norms, some of the fights for rights of others, and to help us to communicate and negotiate and understand points of views of others. So in order to do that, you need to be able to understand the terms and then do a self-reflection on yourself. So for instance, what do we know? The first question is the what, which describes an event or an action. And then the second question is so what, which explains the action or event. And then the now what explains what you're going to do in the future. So what we know right now is that we have a whole host of environmental discords that can cause stress and tension. Look outside the window. We are under severe weather watch today, right? For flooding and tornadoes. So what we know, particularly in our area in Middle Tennessee, over the last couple of years, we've experienced a lot of natural disasters, social injustices, and a global pandemic that we're still in, right? It's not gone away. And neither has the natural disasters, because look outside the window, right? And so what has happened with COVID-19, which is the global pandemic, it created a public health emergency. So in the midst of all of these other stressors and tensions that are happening in our environment, then on top of it, we have some of these injustices that are happening to our individuals in the community. For instance, we had a bombing on Christmas Day in Nashville. Y'all remember that? That was just a year ago. We're dealing with the removal of Confederate statues, changing of names of buildings. We got some of that right here on this campus, right? In Middle Tennessee, we have a zip code 37208, which has the highest incarceration rate in the nation. That's North Nashville, right? Yeah. And in the area where an average of 100 persons per day move to the area. Talk about a lot going on in the environment. Okay. Not only has that happened, there is with all of this movement in our environment, we're also experiencing or seeing a more diverse and dispersed population globally, not just Middle Tennessee, but globally. And so when you have all of these discords going on in the environment, we are humans and we all have a need for a sense of belonging and a sense of connectedness. And oftentimes we're connected by age, by race, by geographical location, by veteran status, by that whole host of lists that you just saw earlier. But when your environment is not welcoming and inviting of your diversity, that creates a potential issue. Is that correct? So what we do know is that in the US over the last 2 decades, the population again has become more racially and ethnically diverse and dispersed. So in 2019, the two largest minority populations in the United States were Hispanic and Black or African American, right? Which requires that we look at in our organizational settings, whether it be in a school, whether it be in your workplace, whether it be on the playground, because that's the setting, right? That we need to look at how to enhance the learning and decrease some of those barriers. So going back to that equity fence. So how do we remove those barriers one at a time? So because of the dispersion in diversity and location move, we know that we have to work on social and emotional capacity building, which is something that helps us as individuals to cope with stressors, right? So if you got all of this going on in your environment, you got a tornado, you got a flood, you got communities, particularly in Middle Tennessee, that are really being affected every 6 months by just natural disasters. So we have to work on trying to find some type of mechanism to decrease some of those stresses. Now, let me add another one for you. You're going into social work. Social work is very challenging, demanding, and stressful. Not trying to frighten you, but you deal with people. You're dealing with people who are humans. You're dealing with their daily ups and downs, the ups and downs that they experience in their environment, whether it be their home life, their work life, their church life, their school life. So there are a whole host of different nuances that might be happening. But the good news is that social work is one of the fastest growing professions in the country. That's the good news. However, right now, 60% of US social workers are white. And many of them are in systems in which white supremacy and racism are embedded. So how do we again dismantle, bring down some of those barriers for the individuals who are non-white? So we do know that individuals back in 2010, individuals who identified as Black or African American, I'll just use Black for today. That'll be the term that I will use. That we represent 14% of the US population. Okay. But additionally, we're going through, have you guys heard of the migration pattern in the United States in history? I don't know if you got that in the history class. But we're going through another phase of a migration, right? So the Great Migration is coming back and coming back south. So more and more African Americans are moving to the south. So the US Census Bureau reported that about 55% of individuals who identify as Black live in the South, right? So just think about all the things you've experienced, you've seen in the media as it has related to our brothers and sisters in the community. And it's projected though by 2045 that the majority population in the US will be BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. That's what BIPOC means. Not heard that, okay? We also know that our student population is diversifying. So from 96 to 2016, the BIPOC undergrad student representation grew from 29.6% to 45.2%. So again, going back to institutions and structures, so that means we've got to rekindle, regroup on how do we provide services, whether it's teaching them in the classroom, working with them in the workforce, playing with them on the playground. We have to figure out how to best work with this diverse population. Okay. All right, so here we go with the code of ethics. So we do know, hopefully, our code of ethics. We do know perhaps that social work began during the 19th century to address social problems and promote social justice and the well-being for others on all systems. When I say all systems, I mean individuals, families, groups, and communities. So we don't work with just individuals or just families. We work with everybody in every system. So if you didn't know, now you know, okay? And so because of having to work with all of these folk and entities on all of these system levels and deal with past historical traumas and stressors and issues, it is of utmost importance that we embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion within our social work practice. It is a must, and it is embedded within our professional code of ethics. As you see, social justice is at the center of our practice. So recently, NASW updated the code of ethics to include more information about working towards cultural competency, or the term is changing to cultural humility, showing a level of respect, right? So it's all about us being able to respect each other for who they are and where they came from, and not discount those backgrounds. Your background is just as important as mine and hers and his, and so on and so forth. So it's embracing everyone's background and not discounting it. So social workers, excuse me, according to our professional standards, not only do we professionally have to work with clients, whether it's in or outside in the community, we are also charged with doing self-reflection of ourselves, not just what's going on with the client. So you have to be in tune with what you know and what you don't know. And if you don't know it, figure out how to know it, right? So you just don't stop there. And cultural competency or humility is a lifelong process, meaning you just don't take social work 3200, cultural diversity, competency, and practice and keep it moving. No, you're gonna keep it moving because you're gonna keep learning, right? Because you're gonna keep building on it on a day-to-day basis. I just mentioned how our environment is constantly changing. Thank you, Scott. And as you see, we have no control over the weather. I don't anyway. I don't know if y'all do, but I don't. And in Middle Tennessee, we really don't have any control. So it's like we're being punished or something. Let me get off the topic with that. I don't know why. I mean, I just don't know why. I mean, you have to think about it. Why is it that a community is experiencing constant stress and tension? To me, it's on purpose, right? It could be a wake-up call to say, what's going on? Don't let me start singing, right? Because I connect everything to a song. So like, what's going on in our environment that we need to be in tune with, right? Other than just getting up, being satisfied, going our job, and having a place to lay our heads. Some of our sisters and brothers don't have that. So what do we need to do differently to be able to help individuals in the community? Oh, let me move for Scott. Tell me I need to move back. And here is the beginning of our research. Okay.
Hi again. So the three of us, Doctors Dotson, Sullenberger, and Postlethwait, got to talking and decided to look at what our agencies are receiving in terms of training opportunities, because we want them to work with you when you go into field, right? So it might be good to know what they know. So that's what we did. So far, it's a small survey. I haven't checked to see how many responses more we have had. We did a reset. So we just did an anonymous survey, and we also did a focus group, which is a more in-depth discussion. So I'm just going to briefly tell you a little about that. And one of the questions that we asked was about informal training opportunities. So think about this like videos you could watch on your own on YouTube, or a book you might read, or something you hear from someone, or discussions you might have. And before I forget, we do have these slides if you want them, and there's some nice resources at the end for your informal training opportunities. So these were some of the things that these 17 folks said were some of the things they had experienced. So it looks like the biggest one was cultural sensitivity awareness training. And then the smallest group had to do with what it means to be an ally. And so my question to you is, in terms, when you think about your own informal training opportunities, because we do provide extra credit, you can come do stuff. Do any of these in particular stand out, either is something you want to do, or you have done, or you haven't thought about? What about some of these categories? Yes. Oh, wait, what?
There are three. She has three.
Oh, you have three, okay. Cultural sensitivity and awareness. Recognizing privilege. Recognizing your implicit bias. Like, you want to take them, you've been doing them, we need them more. What? Okay, okay, we have videos. Yeah. Yeah, we have some good resources on that at the end of this too, for you that don't even take 8 hours. I mean, really just things to get you thinking. What else stands out? Anyone want to add to that? Okay.
The last one, what it means to be an ally.
What it means to be an ally, to be part of the solution, to help, even if you're not a part of whatever that group is. Yeah, yep. Okay, one more. Recognizing microaggressions in the workplace. So yeah, that's something else yeah, and we've got some stuff on that. See, so you can go look. And this really, frankly, we asked them about informal and formal. So they're actually the same categories, but these were asking about, you know, what actual formal training opportunities often in their agency they may have received. So again, it could be that you go into your field placement and have these opportunities, or maybe you would like to have them. When you look at these categories, again, they're the same categories. We just asked them about formal training. Do you look at that, any of these in particular, and think, oh yeah, they need to be teaching us that, or I don't know, what kind of comes to mind for you when you look at these? Anybody else want to add to that? I know you all like to talk, so it's not. You're in field right now? They let you come over here. That was nice of them.
And I just forgot to look at the policies of our.
You're looking at policies? Okay.
I would like to know more about the diversity and like
What
what to do in a situation.
to do in a situation. And I think we asked them about their mission statement. Do they have a policy on diversity? Right. So we did actually, that's not in here, but we did ask them about that. So, you know, that is, and that's a great question to ask them as you're pondering their policies, right? So what, to me, the highlight of this study was really is when we got to talk to them. So it was a small group. We did it on Zoom, everything's on Zoom. And we talked about, you know, what their concerns were, what they needed help with. And frankly, I think the most interesting thing at the end was they weren't sure how to address this with students. They knew it was important. And so I want you to be aware of that, you know, your agencies are thinking about it and working towards that. And again, some of also what they talked about is depending on the agency, maybe some people in the agency don't think there's any kind of problem, as where some do, like, oh, it's fine, there's no racism, or, you know, we include everybody. So that's not, or there's not even a problem with race. Racism in our agency. So there's definitely something else they talked about. Yes, personal changes before the organization happens, so that may be part of it. So of course, we were talking to people who were really interested in having these discussions. Yes. So one thing we did was we gave them some resources. Again, some of those you'll get at the end of this, to think about how we can provide continuing education for agencies, and maybe find ways in field seminar to help you all, and maybe in your learning agreements that you do with the agency for things you have to achieve. So those are some things that you know we discussed, and hopefully we will have another focus group before too long. We did resend out the survey, so we'll see what happens there. I think that's, you're gonna talk about, I think, inclusive teaching. Okay.
So again, So again, not only was it about field instructors, but we also need to understand who teaches the student, right? Which are your professors. So again, myself and some colleagues here at the university, back in 2019, 2020, we did an inclusive teaching professional learning community with faculty here at the university and got feedback from students. So one of the things that came out of those learning communities was that we need to understand that students have a sense of belonging, which I talked about earlier, which is a sense of connectedness. Students are more likely to persist through challenges when instructors communicate what their standards are and provide a clear pathway for them. And to be transparent, and of course, to be aware and appreciative of diversity within the classroom, right? So then we decided to survey our students. So there were 7 of us in the group, and so I'm gonna go backwards so you can't see that real quick. And we surveyed our students to ask them, what do you need from your professors in the classroom to feel included? So I'm gonna ask you in the room and on Zoom land, what do you need as a student looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion? What are your needs? Yes.
We're not gonna agree, so when you're reading it down, somebody can correct you or about their opinion and how they feel and how their person feels.
Okay.
And they do that, like, you get open dialogue, because some people have never, maybe sit around.
Okay. So openness, respectful, setting expectations.
Make sure that everyone knows that it's okay, because you might not be aware of things that you say,
Right.
or, you know, just different dialects that you use.
Okay.
Could be harming other people, and leave it open so we can correct each other.
Have open dialogue. Dialogue is very key. Yes.
I think you're doing, I mean, yes, you're right, but not enough. I think that also goes into, when it comes to having sessions in class, as the class, making sure that when we hear something that might, like, bring it to some attention, that they are being kind of in a respectful manner, so they recognize it within yourself and in others, that you have experience. You have those biases, it is to other people and not think that not want to take this part of your.
Absolutely. Yes.
Karen Covington from Zoom said more diversity in instructional staff.
More, say that again.
More diversity in instructional staff.
More diversity and instructional staffing. Okay. Okay. So some of the comments, this is not all, that we listed, are right in tune with your comments in the room, and that is to have open discussion and open dialogue for transparency, and to understand that we're all here learning together. So just because we are instructors, that doesn't mean we know everything. I don't know everything. I do not claim to know everything. And you as a future social worker should do the same when you're working with your clients. Be honest, right? If you don't know the answer to their question, say, I'm not sure about that. I will get the information and get back to you. Don't just give them something made up, right? Students also indicated that they wanted more value exercises. And that last one, here you go, bringing in your biases, right? This is from a student. So this actually happened to them, or they felt as if that happened to them. What would be interesting to see is what was the follow-up. Did they say anything to the professor to let them know how they were feeling? So again, dialogue is key. So if you're feeling some type of way by some of the information that's been shared in class, you need to communicate that back to your professors and say, well, hey, I didn't understand, or that made me feel some type of way, so that you can work towards it. But if you don't know, you don't know, right? And here are some of the resources that we shared with, let me move on, Mrs. Yu. Here are some of the resources that we shared with our focus group. And also we presented the research at a national conference of social work educators. And again, we can share this information with you so that you can have these resources for later. Here are oodles of resources, online resources, books. Additionally, the more you read, the more educated and informed you become. So to make sure that you're actually hearing factual information. So as a scholar, you need to read. So don't believe everything that's on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and all those places, right? So make sure that you actually follow it up with factual information. Here are our references. And I think we are near the end. Right. Again, we want to thank the Department of Social Work for being a spearheader and a trailblazer. This is the first time in the department's history, and we have been a Department of Social Work since the 70s, that we have had a Black History Month. I'm a realist, anything. I'm just a realist, and I tell that in class, I just keep it real, right? But here are 4 meaningful actions that we want to leave you with when it relates to DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. One is that it reveals a relevant opportunity, so an opportunity to look at what some of the issues might be. It elevates equity, it activates diversity, and it leads inclusively. And as Dr. P kind of mentioned early on, I call myself a nerd. It is what it is. If I call myself a nerd, it's okay, right? That's how I recognize myself. But I'm big into quotes because they're meaningful for me, and often help me to maneuver through the day. So I'm going to leave you with 3 famous quotes. Never be limited by other people's limited imagination. And that was by Dr. Mae Jemison, who was the first African-American female astronaut. And what many people don't know, she didn't start off in science. She was an Africana Studies major. Who knew, right? So she did not let other people's opinion limit her. Success is to be measured, and not so much by the position that one has reached in life, as by the obstacle he has overcome while trying to succeed. And that is by Booker T. Washington, who was an educator, an orator, and founder of Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama. And he was also an advisor to several presidents. Don't know if you knew that. Lastly,
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Alabama's in the house. Oh, you got
Hold
some,
on. No.
you got some folk in the room rolling with you. And finally, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones who've been waiting for, and we are the change that we see. And that was by former President Barack Obama, who was the 44th president of the United States. So again, thank you for listening, and to the Department of Social Work and our previous presenters and presenters to come. And shameless plug, our last Black History Month series will be this Thursday, again at the noon hour, with Dr. Marvin Lewis from Tulane University, our own Dr. Vicki Harden, who's the MSW coordinator here at MTSU, and Dr. Carmelita Lindsay, who is with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is a treat. I've heard Dr. Lucas before, And I got wind of something she's gonna do new. So I can't wait to hear that. And in the next week or so, the time is right for social work, which is the social work month theme. And we have a whole month of activities planned just for you. All right, without further ado, thank you and stay blessed.
Tigers, go Tigers.
Which Tigers?
Well, LSU
TSU.
and TSU, of course, TSU, go all Tigers. See,
LSU
look,
Tigers, TSU Tigers.
yes.
The Bulldogs.
The other.
It's getting a little ugly in here.
They beat y'all last month.
MTSU is gonna play TSU.
Thank y'all for being here, so.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
Oh, 4 minutes early.
Look at us. Bye. y'all.